It is the summer of 80 AD, and the dust of the Roman Colosseum isn't made of sand. It is a fine powder of crushed bone and dried gore. You aren't a hero of the Republic. You are Felix, the unfortunate, a piece of state-owned property with a 90-day expiration date. You have just signed the Sacramentum Gladiatorium, the most terrifying contract in human history. With a single drop of ink, you have legally consented to be burnt, bound, beaten, and killed by the sword for the entertainment of the masses. Welcome to the Ludus, the great school, which from the outside looks like a training camp, but from the inside functions like a high-security death row. The air here is thick with the smell of sweat, olive oil, and the copper tang of blood that never quite washes out of the practice floor. You are stripped of your name and given a stage title, usually something aggressive like Flamma or Victor, a cruel irony for a man whose life is no longer his own. If you think you'd survive because you're tough, look at the statistics. In the Roman world, a career gladiator was anyone who lived past their third fight. Most novices didn't survive their debut afternoon. You are about to learn that the most dangerous thing in Rome wasn't the lion in the pit. It was the man with the wooden sword standing behind you, timing your pulse. The lanista, your owner, looks at you not as a warrior, but as an investment. Every calorie you eat and every hour you sleep is calculated to maximize your show value. You are being fattened and hardened for a single purpose, to die in a way that makes 50,000 people scream for more. The gates are locking and the 90-day countdown has begun. Hit subscribe to enter the archive. Once you step into the sand, there is no turning back.
Hollywood has lied to you about the gladiator's body. You aren't a lean, shredded bodybuilder. You are a Hordearius, a Barley Man. The 2026 archive reveals that gladiators were intentionally fed a high-carb vegetarian diet of barley and beans to create a thick layer of subcutaneous fat. This wasn't because the lanista was cheap, it was a tactical fat shield. This layer of blubber protected your vital organs and arteries from shallow slashes, allowing you to bleed and keep fighting, creating the gore spectacle the Roman crowd demanded. Your daily life is a monotonous cycle of the machine. You train for 16 hours a day with weapons that are twice as heavy as the ones you will use in the arena. This is to ensure that on the day of the games, your real sword feels like a feather in your hand. You are taught the art of the death stroke, not just how to kill, but how to receive a killing blow with dignity. In the Ludus, failing to die correctly is a crime punishable by torture. The psychological warfare is worse than the physical. You eat, sleep, and train alongside the men you will be forced to disembowel in 3 months. The man sharing your barley porridge this morning is the same man who will be ordered to slide a blade between your ribs on Tuesday. Silence is enforced in the barracks. The Romans knew that if you became friends with your fellow inmates, you might hesitate in the sand. And in the Colosseum, hesitation is the only unforgivable sin. To maintain your strength, you drink a tonic that the archive identifies as Gladiator Ash, a foul-tasting brew of charred wood ashes and vinegar. Modern chemical analysis proves this was a potent calcium and magnesium supplement to prevent bone fractures during high-impact combat. You were a biologically optimized weapon, a precursor to the modern super soldier, kept in a state of peak physical readiness just so you could be broken for a holiday festival.
The 2026 archive has finally opened the mass graves of Ephesus, revealing the forensic truth hidden for 2 millennia. Using high-resolution isotope analysis, we can now see the Biography of Pain written on gladiator skeletons. Over 70% of the remains show evidence of survived traumatic injuries, skulls with healed hammer blow indentations, and femurs knitted back together with surgical precision. The Romans didn't want you to die in practice. You were too expensive to waste on a training accident. But the healed wounds tell a darker story of the 90-day cycle. Many skeletons show signs of restraint atrophy, bone thinning caused by being kept in heavy iron shackles between training sessions. You were a lion in the arena, but a dog on a leash in the cells. The archive also reveals a terrifying consistency in the final blows. Most gladiator deaths weren't from a chaotic melee, they were surgical. A single, precise thrust through the throat or into the heart from above, often delivered while the victim was kneeling. Mass spectrometry performed on the soil of these pits reveal high levels of lead and mercury, likely from the Charon character, an arena official dressed as the god of the dead who would strike the fallen with a red-hot iron to ensure they weren't faking. If you survived the fight but were too injured to be repaired, you were retired in the morgue, the spoliarium, where your throat was cut and your armor was stripped to be scrubbed and given to the next infelix. This was industrial-scale slaughter masquerading as sport. The 2026 data shows that the average age of death in the Ephesus pits was just 22 years old. These weren't grizzled veterans, they were boys. The 90-day death sentence wasn't just a metaphor, it was a logistical reality. The cost of housing and feeding a gladiator for more than a few months often outweighed the profit of his contracts. For the lanista, it was simply better for business if you died on schedule.
The Colosseum has been empty for centuries, but the architecture of the spectacle still rules our world. We think we are civilized because we no longer watch men die for barley, but the 2026 archive proves that the human desire to watch an outlier struggle for survival is hardwired into our biology. The gladiator wasn't just a fighter, he was a scapegoat for the city's sins. By watching someone else face death, the Roman citizen felt more alive. We still build Luduses today, we just call them different names. Every time society creates a disposable class of workers or thrives on the voyeuristic suffering of the unfortunate, the ghost of the Roman arena is nodding in approval. The 90-day death sentence didn't disappear, it just evolved into different forms of systemic exploitation. The legacy of the gladiator isn't the courage, it's the silence of the 50,000 people who sat in the stands and watched a man die without ever speaking his real name. I am placing the gladius in your hand. Imagine you are in the center of the arena. You have just defeated your opponent, your friend from the barracks. The emperor is looking at you. The crowd is screaming for blood, but your friend is whispering for mercy. If you kill him, you win your freedom and a bag of gold that can buy your family out of poverty. If you spare him, the crowd will turn on you and you will both be executed on the spot. Do you choose gold, killing your friend to save your family, or do you choose blood, dying with honor alongside the only man who truly knows you? This choice reveals the part of your soul that the archive can't measure. Type your choice in the comments. I'll be hearting the most brutal and honest defenses. If you haven't yet, join the archive by subscribing to ensure you never miss a 2026 reveal. If you want to see the 2026 forensic files on the Iron Maidens of the Dark Ages, click the video on your screen. The archive is closed.